Welcome to This Explainer. We're diving straight into a hidden, completely invisible universe today. We spend so much of our time looking at the macro world, the big stuff right in front of us, that we totally forget about the microscopic world that literally builds everything alive, including us. So let's shrink all the way down and unravel the absolute mysteries of cells.
Section 1. What are we made of? To figure out this biological mystery, it makes perfect sense to start with the thing you know best, your own body. So what exactly are humans made of? Seriously, pause and think about it for a second. If you strip away the skin, the bones, the muscle, what are the fundamental, invisible building blocks that actually stack up to make a living, breathing human being?
Well, the answer involves a number so large it almost loses its meaning. 37 trillion. An adult human is made of roughly 37 trillion cells. To put that insane scale into perspective, imagine if every single cell in your body was just the size of a grain of sand. Those 37 trillion cells, they'd be enough to fill up about 100 bathtubs right to the brim. You are walking around right now as a highly coordinated city of 37 trillion living units.
And all of that life truly begins at the cellular level, stacking up beautifully, kind of like biological building blocks. You start with tiny organelles inside the cell, which make up the cells themselves. Then those cells group together to form tissues. Tissues combine to form organs, like your heart or lungs. And finally, those organs build the entire body systems that keep us alive and kicking every single day.
Section 2. Discovering the microscopic world.
Now, seeing how perfectly organized we are, you might be wondering how we even figured out these building blocks existed in the first place. None of this knowledge would be possible without a massive technological leap back in the 1600s. Right around the time Shakespeare was writing plays, two curious Dutch lens makers, Hans and Zacharias Janssen, were messing around with lenses in a tube, and they accidentally created one of the very first microscopes. That one invention sparked centuries of discovery by curious minds who suddenly had the superpower to see the invisible.
Fast forward a bit to 1665, and a scientist named Robert Hooke takes this early microscope tech and looks at a simple piece of cork made from tree bark. Looking through his lens, he noticed these tiny, repeating chambers. They actually reminded him of the small, simple rooms that monks lived in at monasteries. And what were those rooms called? Cells. So Hooke famously named these tiny biological chambers cells too. And, well, the name just stuck.
Section 3. The 3 Rules of Life.
By the 1800s, things were actually getting pretty spicy in the scientific community. You had 3 scientists, Matthias Schleiden, Theodor Schwann, and Rudolf Virchow, getting into fierce arguments, heated debates, real drama, all to define the actual rules of these microscopic units. Out of those fiery debates emerged what we now call cell theory. It rests on 3 strict rules. Number 1, all living things are made up of 1 or more cells. 2, the cell is the basic unit of organization in living things. And 3, all cells come from pre-existing cells. That last point was a massive breakthrough. It finally crushed the old, bizarre belief that life just spontaneously popped out of nowhere, like that wild myth that maggots just magically appeared on decaying meat.
So the really crucial takeaway here is that it absolutely doesn't matter what kind of living organism you're talking about. Whether it's a complex, majestic deer running through a forest, or just a simple, quiet plant sitting on your windowsill, they are all bound by these exact same rules. Life is unified by the cell, and every single cell inside you right now, it only exists because another cell divided to create it.
Section 4. 2 types of cells.
As our microscopes got better, scientists realized that all these cells essentially play for one of 2 distinct teams. This is the great divide in biology. On one side, we have prokaryotic cells. These are the relatively simple, self-sufficient players found only in unicellular organisms like bacteria, and they totally lack membrane-bound organelles. On the flip side, we have eukaryotic cells. These are the highly complex ones that contain a nucleus and all sorts of specialized organelles. They can ride solo, but they also work together in massive teams to form advanced, multicellular life forms, which, yes, includes you and me.
What's really fascinating here is the origin of the word itself. Prokaryote literally translates from Greek to mean before nucleus. That's a brilliant little evolutionary clue. It tells us that these simple, rugged prokaryotic cells were surviving and thriving on Earth long before the more complex eukaryotic cells ever even developed.
The physical difference between the two is staggering when you look at them. The simpler prokaryotic cell just has its genetic material floating around loosely inside. It's pretty basic.
But the eukaryotic cell, it's like a highly organized factory. It tightly protects its precious genetic material inside a central secure vault called a nucleus, and it uses all those specialized membrane-bound organelles to do complex jobs super efficiently. That advanced level of organization is literally what allows complex life to exist in the first place.
Section 5. Measuring the invisible.
Okay, so now that we know what these building blocks are, we have to wrap our heads around the bizarre math and scale required to actually measure them. I want to test your sense of scale for a second. If you're standing in a perfectly lit room, no magnifying glass, no microscope, what is the absolute smallest object your naked eye can actually detect?
Turns out, the absolute limit of human vision bottoms out at about the size of a single grain of table salt, or roughly the width of the thinnest strand of human hair. Anything smaller than that, and our eyes just physically cannot resolve the detail.
To give you a little scale vertigo here, a single strand of your hair is about 0.1 millimeters thick. A single prokaryotic bacterium is so impossibly tiny that you can line up 100 of them, shoulder to shoulder, just to cross the width of that one single hair follicle. They are living their entire lives on a scale our eyes can't even begin to comprehend.
Because we're working in microscopic units like micrometers and nanometers, we have to rely on some very heavy-duty tools. A standard compound light microscope, like the one you'd see in a classroom, can magnify an image up to 1,000 times, giving us a nice flat 2D look at cells. But massive electron microscopes? They skip light entirely. They use beams of electrons to magnify specimens up to 50 million times. That gives us incredibly detailed 3D images of the absolute smallest structures of life.
Now, at that extreme magnification, writing out all the zeros for nanometers gets completely exhausting. Scientists are practical people, so they brilliantly use scientific notation to handle the math. Instead of writing out an endless string of zeros, you just move the decimal point to the right of the first non-zero digit, count the spaces, and write that as a negative power of 10. It's basically an elegant mathematical shortcut for dealing with an invisibly small world.
Before we wrap up, I've got to give you a fun fact to take away from this explainer. If you ever feel short or, you just want to sound incredibly tall at your next party, just convert your height from centimeters into nanometers. A very average height of 171 centimeters instantly becomes over 1.7 billion nanometers. So you can honestly brag that you are over a billion units tall. Which brings us to our final thought. You're not just a person. You are a walking, breathing universe made of 37 trillion brilliantly coordinated microscopic cells. And if all of that complex biology is happening silently, right inside your own hands as you look at them, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredible microscopic mysteries are hiding right in front of us, just waiting for the right lens to be discovered? Keep wondering and keep exploring.